Hi, I'm Marc and welcome to our second season of Get to the Joke. Our guest today is one of my favorite comedians I've ever met, Pedro Gonzalez. Pedro has been seen on the Late Night Show with Stephen Colbert. He was also a finalist in the New York City comedy competition. This is one of my favorite interviews. Pedro just has some of the craziest stories, and he gives you some of the most raw and unfiltered advice, and it's just amazing and awesome. I know you're going to enjoy this interview, so please subscribe to this channel, and now let's get to the joke.
Pedro Gonzalez in my family. But I am the first one who gets to speak into a microphone without plexiglass in front. That's a good thing.
Hey, Pedro.
How's it going?
Good, how are you?
I'm good, just chilling.
That's good, man. Can you hear me okay? Am I coming through okay for you?
I can hear you perfect. Can you see me fine?
Yeah, you're doing good, man. You're doing good. It's good to see you, man. It's been a few months.
Too. It's been a while, yeah.
Yeah, it was good, dude. I think the last time I saw you, you were about to head down to Colombia. I think that week, the next week, you were flying down to Colombia. I think that's the last time I saw you. So
right. I went to Colombia for 2 months, and I did some stand-up there, and I bombed. And then back in New York.
That's awesome. So wait, you're in New York currently right now then?
I am in New York today. I actually did my second open mic since getting the vaccine. So things are starting to
so you have the How did you get the vaccine, can I ask? Because you're a pretty young guy.
I got the first dose because I work in court. So court officers are in the first line of defense. Since I work with them, I qualify.
All right.
Also because people will die if they don't hear my jokes anymore. So we got to give this guy so you can talk about it.
Well, dude, I am so happy that you agreed to do this because I totally respect you as a comic. I mean, you're one of my favorite comics out there. I think your material is spot on. I think it's so unique and clever, and just I root for you. I literally when you got Colbert, I was so happy because I know how hard you work and I know how good you are. So it's I'm honored that you are gonna sit with me for the next couple hours to discuss nothing but stand.
No, I'm honored to hang out with you.
Oh, that's great. I've done a ton of research on you, Pedro. I've listened to a lot of interviews and everything, but I want to get started because I want to talk a little bit about Pedro, not the comic. I want to talk about you a little bit. I know you were born in Bogota, Colombia, and you lived there till you were 19. I think it's weird because I feel like I'm a typical American, which we don't learn a lot about Colombia, in school or anything. Kind of what we see about Colombia is probably not what Colombia would want us to see about them. It's narcos and Pablo Escobar and cartels and just poor people and violence, and it's I don't know if really that's the image or that's just what Hollywood wants us to focus on. So can you give me a little bit about kind of how you were brought up, kind of what we know Colombia is a beautiful country, but it seems dangerous for someone like myself to go down and visit. But kind of give me a little bit about what it was like to grow up in Colombia.
I mean, you would think people are always so sensitive about we stereotype, but Americans don't know anything. But I'll be honest with you, before I came to the United States, I knew nothing and I had no interest. I thought it was Disneyland and cake parties. And so, like, the world is equally as ignorant about you guys as you are about the world. And why should you know? There's a country of 400 million people. I don't know. But I mean, I appreciate the like wanting to see beyond what the media shows.
Yeah.
Can I tell you something funny though? When I went back to do comedy in Colombia, the first thing that a host would do would be like, this guy used to do comedy in New York. I don't know why. Maybe he got deported. Maybe he got caught with cocaine. That's why he's back. And I was like, oh my God, I've been fighting hosts for years, begging them not to be hacked and respect Colombian people. And the people who did it the most to me were Colombian people in Colombia. So like, but to answer your question, it is a beautiful country. There's a lot of money in Colombia. It's not equally distributed. That's part of the reason why, like, my dad and my family came here, because my dad was a successful businessman, but small businesses aren't that like super protected by the government. So like any big monopoly can come. My dad had a milk farm. They brought a huge company from Italy, overtook all the region where my dad used to have his customers and stuff. So he lost everything, and we had to come to the United States. There's money. I have relatives who have very little money. I have relatives who have a quinta with a tennis court and a swimming pool. Houses better than like what people in Beverly Hills have, right?
Yeah.
But it is, I mean, everyone lives in a gated community. If you have money, you live in a gated community because I guess you feel safer.
Yeah.
But it is a gorgeous country.
Yeah.
My girlfriend keeps looking for like destinations for traveling, and she showed me a castle today. She was like, "Do you know what Ipiales is?" And showed me this beautiful castle, and I didn't even know that existed. So
okay.
For tourism, it's beautiful. Medellin, which is the city where Pablo Escobar used to live, and that's why it's the easy stereotype for that city. The tourism industry is beautiful. There's thousands of American people who live there because they can. The lifestyle there is amazing, and it's only a fraction of the cost of living in the United States. So, so if you're ever wondering if you should go to Colombia, definitely, it's safe.
Yeah.
It's a great place to be. It's just like anywhere else. If you live here, like if you visit New York, you'll go to Chelsea, you'll go to like Lower East Side. You're not gonna go deep in the Bronx to some dark alley because whether it's the Bronx or Bogota, you're gonna get touched. Inappropriately.
Now, in your stand-up, especially the clip you sent me, you talk a lot about your family. I mean, and you know, and how much of that is true? I mean, the joke that you do that I love, you know, about your mother being 16 and your father being 24. And that he's been in prison before. Is that all true, or are you trying to play on kind of like what Americans think of stereotypical Colombians?
That's a very good question. And there's some jokes that I like. I would never do. Like my closing joke that I did in Colbert involves me interacting with a guy that's blocking my path at the airport while telling me go back to your country. It didn't happen to me punctually, but it happened in my airplane as a lady was rushing to catch a connection to leave the country, and the guy said, go back to your country. So that's true. For example, that's true. My mother became a grandmother at 38. Right?
Okay.
So she became a mom at 18. So the 16, it's a slight exaggeration for comedic effect. For comedic effect. My grandfather has been shot at. My dad has been shot at. They grew up in towns that were hardcore, like the Wild West. And they've been to jail. Okay. So I think it's like whenever, like, even if your life fits a stereotype, the joke applies because it's you.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm going to touch on that about some of the stuff that you said about that later. I want to get to, but I guess like going back to your, so I mean, did your father do anything wrong to go to jail, or was it? I mean, what kind of what we see is that the Columbia's corrupt, and if you're on the wrong side of the law or whatever, that they can pretty much do what they want, kind of thing. Or was like what did your dad go to prison for? Do you mind saying? Or
well, so my grandpa went to prison because he was playing pool with his best friend, and I think the best friend was how you like whatever points you make, you like you pick up your stick and then you count them.
Yeah.
On the thing, and I think he was stealing points, and my grandpa got really mad, and he whacked him with the pool cue.
Oh jeez.
And the guy accidentally just like hit the wrong thing of the table, so he died.
Oh wow.
My grandpa went to jail.
Oh wow.
For a couple of years for like involuntary manslaughter or something like that. And according to what my dad says, my grandpa very quickly established himself as somebody to be respected in jail.
Yeah. Okay.
That's not even my dad's dad. That's that's my mom's dad. That my dad really respects.
Okay.
My dad actually got out of jail because he was friends with the guy who happened to be a director of like the jail department for the whole state where my dad was.
Okay.
Jail.
Okay.
My dad was a humble farmer. He used to buy like lots and lots and lots of sacks of potatoes in his truck and drive them to Bogota.
Okay.
Drop them off at the market and then sit and drink with people.
Okay.
So then he started bringing back, somebody would be like, you're going to Capital City to deliver those potatoes? Bring me a pair of jeans. And they were like, sure, I'll bring you a pair of jeans. And they were like, bring me a knife. And then my dad just brought a knife. And then then somebody was like, can you, because there's a lot of farmers. The farmers want to have their weapons to like protect their thing. I mean, that's what my dad told me. Who the fuck knows? You always do what you're doing. You're like, I'm doing it for a good reason.
Yeah.
It's a big lie. So somebody mentioned to my dad, is like, can you bring me like a gun or something? And my dad was like, I don't really know anybody. So fast forward, my dad is in the market in Bogota, just having his drinks while everybody unloads the truck before he leaves. It's like some dude wants the gun, and there was a cop.
Oh.
Yeah. And the cop goes like, I have access to plenty of guns. And my dad was like, really? Great. So then my dad started buying like gun by gun from this guy.
Yeah.
And he would bring them and sell them individually to the farmers who wanted to have their gun. Yeah. To protect their farm or whatever.
Yeah.
Years later, I'm talking, my dad must have smuggled like a couple dozen weapons or something. The rebel fighters got caught in possession of some weapons that were traced back to the police armory. I don't know if that's a word in English.
Yeah, no, yeah, that is. Yeah. The
police armory, where this motherfucker was just stealing them from the police and giving them to my dad. So then my dad was, I think he was accused of like terrorism or some bullshit.
Oh, wow.
And by the grace of God, he was able to not go to jail.
That's good.
Right? But the joke goes back to like, well, I'm definitely the first one that hasn't had to shoot a gun or for self-defense.
Yeah.
or just like done something shady with guns.
Yeah.
Because by the time that I was born, my dad had money. I lived in a city. I went to a prep school, so like that wasn't my environment anymore.
Yeah.
And thank God, because if I had gone to a place that you had to defend yourself with a knife or a gun, I would have been the first one to like just weep and cry and beg and to understand. I know that would be a lie.
Well, that's good. So, I mean, it sounds like your dad wanted to get you out of that environment. It sounds like, it sounds like he, he worked hard to keep you from being in a neighborhood or an area where you could possibly get mixed up with not good company, let's say. Is that fair? Was your dad really like looking out for you and your other siblings as far as like keeping you guys on the straight and narrow, don't do anything shady, don't, kind of thing?
Yeah, for sure. I think we're like the first generation in our family that had access to like, we were able to finish high school. They had our sights to like go to college. So my dad has always been a very, very, very hard worker. And he had that like a small patch where he was like 25 and he saw easy money and he like went for it. But other than that, when my dad came here, he started like a bunch of businesses. He had lost everything. So like, he wouldn't mind. He was like 50 and he was putting on 14-hour shifts, like as a janitor.
Wow.
So he's never been somebody shy to work, and he gave us a good example. Like he did what he could with the educational tools that he had.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Now, what was your exposure to stand-up? I know you didn't get into stand-up comedy until you were in Philly, which you were well into America by that point. But what was your exposure in Colombia to stand-up comedy? Was it something that was around? Like, was it on TV there? Like, when did you first become aware of stand-up comedy? And were they Colombian stand-ups, or were they always predominantly American stand-ups?
So when I lived in Colombia, I didn't have cable.
Okay.
And I didn't speak English, so like I didn't know what HBO was. I didn't know what Comedy Central was. There was a show in Colombia called Happy Saturdays, where there was a guy whose name is Pedro Gonzalez who wore a costume. He just wore a poncho and a hat, and he talked about his grandma. Yeah. And the name of the grandma was Abuela Melano, which abuela means grandma, but it also means, if you say it fast, it can mean smell.
Okay.
And ano means anus.
Okay.
So his joke was like, ass smelling grandma, but it was her name.
Yeah.
So that was the quality of the joke.
Okay.
It would be a guy being like, I just came back from Saudi Arabia and my camel wouldn't start, so I had to get 2 bricks and smash his balls with the bricks. And that's how it started. So it was really embarrassing and sad. To give you an even better idea of what it was like, there was a soldier character. His name was Mikolta something. But Mikolta is a mix of the word soldier and the word monkey. So it was a dude in blackface.
Okay.
Whose name was Monkey Soldier.
Oh, jeez.
And he was also gay. So he was a dude in blackface acting flamboyant.
Yeah.
So you can see how somebody with like a little bit of an IQ would never be like, I want to do that for a living. So anyway, I came here. I had no idea about stand-up. And it was just like 10 years after I was here in the United States, I casually just started passing channels at my job, and I saw Amy Schumer talking about I was a really ugly kid, and I had braces, but business picked up when they took the braces off of my legs, and I was like, oh, I was thinking these braces, but she was doing this braces. Yeah. So there's some language trick that I can learn here, and I was so excited, and a friend was like, you can't shut up about how much you like comedy. You know, people do that for a living here, and I was like, they do? And then I took a class at Helium, and then after the class, I was like, I'm 2 hours away from New York. And then I just moved to New York immediately, and I went to an open mic, and it was in a basement in the West Village, a place called The Lantern. You may have been there. Yeah. And as I was going to go down the basement, I said, I'm going to do comedy in New York. And I took a deep breath and was very afraid. And then I entered the room, and I heard some open mic joke, and I was like, oh, these people are equally as awful any place in the world. Open micers are awful everywhere. So then I relaxed. Yeah. And it's still, to this day, one of the funniest things that happened to me is when like somebody from out of town comes into from like the Midwest and goes to some basement, and it's like 7 of us. Yeah. And he grabs the mic and he says, hello, New York. And it's like, you're not at Carnegie Hall, buddy. Somebody vomited right next to it. Still smells like vomit. Don't read New York because you're a loser like the rest of us.
That's awesome. I was also going to ask, what do your parents think about, especially your father, I would say, about you being a stand-up comic? Because I think about you're telling me about your father. He grew up he was a poor farmer. He went to jail because of pretty much trying to just, make more money to make a living. He built him, he pretty much picks him up from the bootstraps and puts you guys in a nice neighborhood. He then emigrates you guys over to the United States. You go to UCLA to get a PhD in literature, and now you tell them that you want to be a stand-up comic, which doesn't take any really form of education. You only need a GED really for it. What were your parents' attitude and thoughts and behaviors towards you when you were like, I want to eventually do comedy full time?
My mom is just like a person who loves you unconditionally. Yeah. Whatever I told my mom, she would accept me. I've told my mom I've done blow, and she's like, but did you feel like you were gonna die? So I was like, no. She's like, please don't do it again.
Yeah.
She came 2 years ago to visit me, and I was going to do a show at 4 p.m. and one at 10 p.m. And there was a gap of 6 hours where my mom was not going to be able to do anything and be bored.
Yeah.
And I hate boredom.
Yeah.
And I happened to have shrooms. And I was like, shrooms are really cool. And we made tea and she took shrooms and she fucking had a trip. So like, but my mom, I could be a doctor. My mom would never be impressed. My mom would never be impressed.
Yeah.
The first time she saw me do stand-up, we finished my set.
Yeah.
4 of my family members walked out of the bar in the Lower East Side, and they looked at each other and they were like, "We're hungry. Where can we get empanadas?" Nobody commented.
Oh wow.
About the fact that I did okay. Nobody gives a shit that I've been on TV, but they love me. They love me, and I could be bagging groceries of Hallmark, and they would just be like, "We love our kid." My dad is extremely proud though, because he's like counter political. He doesn't like. So he likes funny writers that write against the government.
Okay.
So anything that's like outside the system, he really, really appreciates. So
okay.
He thinks it's great that like I chose to be like my own boss and like
awesome.
I'm doing something that is not working for somebody at a desk, but it's something that's my dream. So he's like super, super proud.
Has he seen you do stand up? Has he been to your shows?
So he hates stand up in Spanish. He's like, oh, they're going to talk about sex, and so he didn't go. When I went to Colombia, somebody booked me on a show in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Industrial, like think about like Northeast Philly. You know it's shady. So I was like, Dad, let me catch an Uber. I'll get an Uber back. My dad was like, there's that neighborhood is so fucking shady.
Yeah.
You cannot find an Uber at midnight. So he drove me there.
Yeah.
And he sat in his car with a bamboo stick for 3 hours waiting to get robbed while I did my show.
Okay.
The reason why he has a bamboo stick is because guns are really troublesome in Colombia anymore.
Yeah.
So like when he lived in Colombia and he was like a milk farmer and blah, blah, he carried a lot of cash. Yeah. He had a gun from protection.
Yeah.
But now he's in his 60s. And he doesn't want to have a permit or something, but he had this fucking stick. So then he gets in and I was like, "Can you please just drive somewhere and come back?
Yeah.
Don't just sit here like a weirdo for 3 hours." He was like, "No, I'm sitting right here." I get off. I stand in front of the bar. I meet a new comedian. I'm trying to make a good impression.
Yeah.
And my new comedian friend starts smoking a joint.
Yeah.
And my dad comes out of the car with like a funky Russian hat to cover his ears and with a stick in his hand. And he goes, "Pedro, put on your mask." And I'm just like, fucking, please. I'm in my 30s. Don't fucking be my dad like I'm 8 in front of my new comedian friend.
So he's never seen you do a show live. I'm assuming he's seen your Colbert show, correct?
Yeah, I think my sister always shows him, but he's never seen it live. I hope I get to perform for them live in Colombian Spanish. That would be amazing for me. But I have to polish it so much.
Yeah. So I mean, have you ever told him? Have you ever been like, "Dad, like it would mean so much to me just to come to a show. I promise that I'm headlining. The feature is not going to talk about sex or anything." Like, have you kind of pled your case to him and like before you die, can you come to my show or something like that? Have you done that at all?
I mean, it's such I'm so cool with him. Like we're in such good terms that it's like even a non-issue. I was like, yeah, Dad, I'm gonna talk about somebody. I'm gonna talk about me coming too quickly. I don't need you to hear that. As long as like what my father cares about is when he's like every time that I do a good show that is well paid, I'm just like, Dad, look at this check, or like, look at this something. Look at this nice hotel that I'm staying in.
Yeah.
Because he cares more about my stability and my happiness than about him getting any credit for it. Okay. But it'd be cool when he's ready, he'll come.
Okay. All right. Cool, man. I wanna get into your routine, and I first have to say that you did a YouTube interview for Hot Breath, which I was just fascinated by your routine. And it really is it should be the gold standard for every comic who wants to make it. I mean, they should type out what you do and put it on their wall and see if they can hit that bar every day, because it is fascinating. And I wrote it out here because I want to kind of go step by step, and I have some questions for you. So the first thing you do is you get coffee, you get toast, and you watch The Simpsons. That's the first thing you do when you wake up in the morning. Is that correct?
If it's like a Saturday, if it's like a work day, because I still have a day job.
Yeah.
So, for example, today I 7:25. I woke up.
Yeah.
The coffee was ready. I just brushed my teeth, got the coffee, and just sat down. And I just sat down to write.
So I have to ask a native Colombian, what coffee do you drink? What is your go-to coffee, and what is your favorite coffee? This has nothing to do with stand-up. I just want to know.
I bring some coffee. Every time I go to Colombia, I bring like 40 pounds of coffee.
Okay.
It's called Café Omais, OMA. When I come back from Colombia, I'll bring you some.
Oh, it's fine. I was bad.
No. I would love to bring you some.
Oh, thank you. And then you sit down and you write 60 to 80 minutes. Now, here's my first question. How do you capture ideas? Because you talk about this free form writing that you do, but I'm talking about you're walking around New York City, you're on the phone having conversation, and something funny, something hits your brain as this could be a joke. How do you capture that idea, or does it not get captured and you just wait until that 7 a.m. time slot and then you hope to remember that incident you write? Tell me how you just capture like an idea.
So I think after years of like trying to come up with a joke, my brain is more tuned, and when the joke just comes, which happens probably like once every 2 months, the joke is there. So whenever there is some sort of like inconsistency, that there is a joke. Like I have a joke about Netflix asking people who have thought about suicide not to watch the show about suicide, but it's the most popular show in all high schools. So these kids feel excluded and like they don't belong, and yet you're telling them not to watch the show. So you just like, something goes like, but this doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Or like when somebody say go back to your country while they're blocking you.
Yeah.
It's like, come on.
But do you carry like a little notebook with you, or do ideas go in your, like if you're on the subway at 10 o'clock at night and you see something that's inconsistent or funny, is there any way to write that down, or is it just that is it just like a litmus test of if I can remember at 7 a.m. tomorrow, then it was worth remembering? Like what is your...
One thing that I've heard from like, because I'm also like a comedy nerd, I know that many people do like the notes on their phones. If it's something that like really stands out, I will make a note. Okay. And then I'll revisit it. There is actually a really good interview with what's the name of this guy, the mustache guy with the blue collar tour?
Oh, Jeff Foxworthy.
Jeff Foxworthy.
Yeah.
And he talks about once you get a premise, you got to milk that as much as you can. So don't just do one punchline, but come up with 50 tags. And I was like, oh man, I've been doing comedy for 7 years and I never do that. I always have a punchline and I move on. Yeah. But for me, it's just like, I know that there are things that made me sad. Like when I was 19, I lost 2 teeth because I couldn't pay for insurance. Yeah. And where there's pain, there's going to be comedy. But I haven't been able to crack that joke. Yeah. Yeah. So then every now and then I'm talking about like, so I wake up and then let's say the last night I saw a documentary about child abuse. So then I just go like, oh, child abuse, blah, blah, blah. And then I go, okay, I went to high school with all priests. And then I try to come up with a clever joke. But guess what? I had really great priests. Like nothing ever bad happened. So like it seems convoluted, but then I just go like, okay, but I did have a crush on a teacher. So then I think about this teacher and I start writing about, and then I was like, oh, my first time that I masturbated, I thought about a teacher. And then my next thought is like, oh, did I do it? How did I do it? And then I end up remembering that my sister once was checking the laundry and she saw my sheets were like really crumpled. And she asked my mom in front of me why they were so crumpled. So it becomes about me and my shame of masturbation. Yeah. But it started from a random thought about a documentary about child abuse. Okay. So I just really don't censor myself. And I get into the habit of writing daily that I don't there's no pressure because
Okay.
I'm just like rambling, and I think I just revisit ideas so many times that there comes a point where I find that funny because like the jokes are like there, but you just don't know. And if I can give you like an extra example, when I lived in Pennsylvania, I fell in love with this woman, and she broke up with me, and I was super drunk one night, and I was really sad, and I saw her at a party, and she left before me because there was like some weird misunderstanding, and I was like, if she knows what's in my heart, she's gonna take me back. And I drove to her home, and I texted her from outside 1,000,000 times. And I just really sincerely wanted to be forgiven and to be taken back. But my action of showing up at her home because of her past triggered really bad alarms. Next thing I know, I have a restraining order.
Oh my God. Just a quick plug and we'll get right back to the show. Have you checked out my website, markstod.com? It gives you a whole wealth of information on how to see me live at shows. You can catch past Get to the Joke episodes and bonus content, and you can also check out some stand-up videos for myself. Please check out my website. Again, that's markstod.com, markstaud.com. Come see me live. Also, please, once again, subscribe to this channel, like our videos, leave a comment. I'll get back to you. Now let's get back to the joke. Gosh.
This woman is 6'2". So we did go to court once because we were summoned to go to court, and I barely looked up above the pulpit, and she was just huge. So then I know that there was pain there. I know that there's something funny because if I make you a little uncomfortable, but I relieve you with the punchline. So like, it's not a formula, but that's how the human responds to laughter is. So I've tried this joke for years. But then we showed up and the judge saw how little I was, and then he forgave me. Or then I showed up at her house, and I read the complaint, and it said that she found fingerprints on a bathroom, on a small window on the bathroom, and the claim was that I tried to get through that thing. So then my other joke was like, I'm little, but I'm not that little. So the whole general idea was I am harmless, really, and I wasn't gonna do anything. And then last week I finally hit upon thing. It's just like I was in love with this woman. She broke up with me, and I was so sad that I drove to her home to beg her to take me back. That didn't say well with her, so she placed an order, a restraining order again. But like I'm 5'7" and you're 6'3". Like if you don't want me to approach you, just go like this, because I can't reach. Right? Might not be the best joke in the world, but it's just to give you an idea of like how many iterations and how many twists. Right, because maybe the funniest part of that joke is saying, if you don't want me to approach you. And then the punchline is like a physical thing. But how many fails, how many attempts to that, it took me to get to, the punchline is actually a physical motion.
Okay, well, let's talk about that process then. So the idea that I'm going to come back to something that you had mentioned in an interview one time, but you try to dig on kind of like these painful memories that you have, and so you have that idea. Okay, so in this example, how did you kind of develop the idea, the thought? If you can kind of walk me through kind of like the thought of these uncomfortable moments and how you freeform. Like, can you just tell me like that process of free writing? I think I have a vague understanding of what you mean by free writing, but like maybe you tell me what you do. Like, how do you? I guess maybe the better question is, how do you free write? How do you free write to kind of get to that joke?
Right. I was looking at my notebook that I had today. So that I could send you like a great example, but it's so full. It's so filled with garbage and like.
Everybody's notebook's like that. I'm gonna look at this little document that I have. Give me 1 second. Yeah. Go right ahead.
My notebook wasn't very fruitful today.
That's okay.
So, okay, this is like a pure joke. Where my girlfriend and I actually had a threesome recently.
Okay, nice.
It was like a magical, super lucky experience.
Yeah.
But I was nervous about not performing.
Mm-hmm.
Not like being able to perform for both of them.
Yeah.
So then I asked my girlfriend, I was like, what's a normal reading for, because I entered this website that's called HIMS, where you can like sort of like talk to a doctor and they give you like a prescription for like male enhancement.
Yeah.
So I was like, what's a normal reading of a blood pressure? And my girlfriend gave me the answer and she said, why? And I was like, I'm trying to get some like blue pills or whatever. And she was like, you don't fucking need them. And blah, blah, blah. So as I'm reading the paragraph that's explaining what those are for, he says, hey, Cialis it's also used for hypertension. So then I know the structure of a joke where T.J. Miller says, I have a prescription for marijuana because I get anxiety when I don't have marijuana. It's a very circular, obvious fucking thing.
Yeah.
And then the moment I was like, wait a minute, Cialis is for hypertension. I know that when my girlfriend and I used to have big fights, she developed hypertension because of the stress.
Yeah.
So I was like, wait a minute, Cialis is for hypertension. It's okay. So I start saying, a lot of people make fun of me when I tell them that I have prescription for Cialis. But what they don't know is that Cialis helps me because I suffer from hypertension. Okay. Which is caused by stress, which is caused by being constantly worried about the fact that I can't get a boner. It's very simple, but it's sort of like sometimes it just comes like you connect what you know about the illness, what you learned about the pill, and then you make it a little bit like self-deprecating.
So is your free writing then, does your free writing read as like almost like a diary where it's like you're just recounting the threesome experience that you had? You're just pretty much writing it out like how it happened. You're not trying to be funny. Does it read like almost like a journal or like a therapy session with like a therapist? Is your free, or are you trying to be funny in your free writing?
I don't know that I'm. I mean, it's hard to tell when you're like trying to be funny or not, because like we at this point in the game, we're like conditioned to seek the punchline. We sort of like know that structure. Yeah. So, so for example, I hate the dentist. I hate my teeth. I've had a bunch of implants. Yeah. So I'll just in the morning I'll just be like, man, I really fucking hated going to the dentist, blah, blah. And then I talk about how expensive it was to go to dentist here. And then that doesn't yield anything. So then I go, my doctor used to slap me and then that doesn't yield anything. And then I remember that after I got like a major root canal done, they gave me ice cream. And then I just think, but wait a minute. The main reason why I had to go to dentist so much is because I was addicted to sugar. So you're giving me that. So then right there, I know that there's something that doesn't make sense. Okay. So then then it becomes less of free writing and more of like, okay, we pinpointed the thing that doesn't make sense. Let's find a way to show it. Okay. I see. So then I quickly came to like my grandpa smoked for 40 years and I took him to chemo. But when we didn't finish chemo, I didn't give him a pack of Newport and be like, hey, you were so brave, go have a smoke. So I guess a lot of the free writing is getting at the root of what was painful or pointless in your upbringing or what is, it's like sort of like getting to that observation that doesn't make sense to you or has a like emotional impact to you. And then you elaborate, how do I feel about this? Why does it make me mad? But you can also be like, I hate when that happens. But by just saying, I love when that happens, you can start the sentence with a completely different point of view, and that can help you arrive at the punchline. Okay. Also, so you could be like, I hate it, or then I love it. Or then if it's an interaction with the second person, you can put yourself in their shoes and be like, how did they feel about that? Or how did a completely neutral stranger saw it from the outside? Okay. Or like you can extrapolate. I mean, it's just I think I think that's where like your comedic intuition kicks in. But if you want to really like break down the angles from which you can approach a premise to like turning into a punchline, there's this really cool book by this guy Scott Dickers, who I think he founded The Onion or something.
Okay.
It's Scott, and then I think the last name is Dickers.
Okay.
Where he should like breaks down when a joke is a hyperbole, when a joke is a misdirection, when a joke is it's like yeah, he just gives you like 7 different types of jokes.
So
which I mean
I was gonna say, is this a fair analogy then? Is your joke writing kind of like a maze where you know where the starting point is? Like on a maze, you always know where to start on a maze. But then you might go down one route, and that one route may be that you hate this subject, and then that leads to nothing. And then you're like, okay, I'm going to go to the next page, and then this path is going to be, I love this. Even though it's maybe not how you feel, I'm going to take the opposite of the first emotion, and then that goes nowhere. Then like, okay, let me let me do a second perspective. Let me not make it about me. Let me make it about somebody else, and then you try to figure out which path takes you to the finish line. Is that a fair analogy?
I think so.
Okay.
Because I mean, at the end of the day, like I don't know what has happened to you in your life, but there are things that you want to take this sting out of, right? By turning into a joke and be like, I can laugh about it because I'm fucking over it. Then that's that's one of the things that I learned by what's his name again? The blue collar guy?
Jeff Foxworthy.
Jeff Foxworthy. Like after I heard the Foxworthy interview and how he was talking about how he writes a premise and he shoots like 50 different punchlines. You just like at the top of my notebook in a 2-sentence in like capital letters, I would put my setup, right? It's just like I hate it when my parents I hate it when they took me on a school trip to go see blah blah blah. I would put that as my setup, and then just approach that, and then just find 50 different punchlines. Like, hey, I was a virgin when I was 17. I would have rather much see my teacher's lingerie drawer or blah blah blah, or like I had never been to blah blah blah, and then you took me to somebody's grave. Yeah. So just like really take it out from every angle, from a hyperbole, from whatever makes you mad, from whatever. You can be a little sarcastic and be like, "Oh, it was so much fun." Yeah. To see whoever sports was blah blah blah.
You talk about how there's not really a formula, but is there a certain? It sounds like you do go through like a checklist. Let's say, like when you approach a joke, is the first thing you're going to do is, all right, I'm going to do with my real feeling. Let's say, for instance, it's the dentist and the missing teeth joke. Like, is the first way that you approach that joke was like, I'm going to say how much I hate the dentist, and then you turned it over again. Okay, now I need to talk about how much I love the dentist, and then like the third one's like, now I got to talk about somebody else. You have like a certain step, like kind of like a flow chart step that you take.
Now that we're talking about it, it feels very much like that, right? But everyone sort of like develops their own filter, because if you see like, if you listen to Anthony Jeselnik, every single thing that he says is filtered by, I'm Anthony Jeselnik and I don't give a fuck. I'm going to drop the baby and my girlfriend, I call her anorexic. And so it's like, ideally you don't want to have that like, okay, this is my formula. But I think it's, I mean, that's the beauty of it, is like, you don't have to like box yourself into like, I'm the sarcastic guy or I'm the blah, blah, blah. But you can crack every joke differently. And there's going to come a point where your voice is so fine-tuned that hopefully my voice one day will get to a point where I was like, I know where I'm speaking from. Okay.
I mean, so let's take your threesome joke, for example. Like, I know you said you just started writing it, so it's still very new. Are you approaching it with, here are my feelings about it, and then tomorrow you'll approach it maybe with a different, the opposite of your feelings. Let's say, like, yeah, you were really nervous about it. I'm going to write today about how nervous I was. But then tomorrow I'm going to write about how confident I was. And then on Friday I'm going to talk about, somebody else being in that threesome. You're going to take yourself out of the whole thing. And then is there like a certain process that you go through when you write a joke? Like, it's always going to be my feeling day 1, opposite feeling day 2, another person's perspective day 3. Do you kind of work that way? Or is it if it hits right away with your feelings that you don't even bother going through the rest of the examples?
So I'm trying to think what's the good joke that I have about the threesome if I haven't finished yet. But so I was thinking about. So first of all, if somebody goes on the stage and they go, I had a threesome, you'd be like, fucking douchebag.
Yeah.
But like by saying I had a threesome, you sort of like, you peeve them a little.
Yeah.
They get a little peeved. It's like, oh, Mr. whatever. And then I go, but I was so nervous that I drank so much whiskey that I sort of like blacked out for half of it.
Yeah.
So then I'm taking myself down a notch.
Yeah.
And this truly happened.
Yeah.
So then what I thought was funny is that, as I told you, I sort of like blacked out for half of it. My girlfriend told me that we were playing naked in the bed with this woman who was gorgeous for about 6 hours.
Yeah.
So the next time that we had sex, my girlfriend said, why can't we just do the same and just like you and me play for 6 hours naked? And I go, well, because when we have someone else, it's new. It's like going to Disneyland for the first time. We're writing that we've never written before. and we can play for 6 hours. But when it's you and me, it's not like going to Disneyland. It's like working at Disneyland. I've been with you for 2 years. It's mostly doing laundry and washing dishes.
That's good. That's good. I love that. But I kind of want to challenge you on something, because it sounds like what you're doing and what you kind of mentioned with the threesome is you're trying to predict how the audience is going to take your setup. So you're like, hey, I had a threesome. You're like, already they're going to be peeved. But then you had a quote from an interview I saw that said that that you're mentioning about the audience. You said, I don't care about them. I care about me, about what my message is. So what is it? Are you writing for the audience? Or will you tune a joke? Maybe, now it's a little less authentic to you. Maybe the message that you wanted got across is a little watered down so that the audience will laugh. Or are you going to be like an Andy Kaufman and just be yourself no matter if the audience likes it or not, kind of thing?
So I guess just to like keep analyzing this example.
Yeah.
It's like, look, I don't want any motherfucker to be like, I have threesome.
Yeah.
Because it's just lame to go and brag and be like, I have a Ferrari. That's lame.
Yeah.
But then what helps me bring myself down is true. I was very nervous and I was pounding whiskey to the point that I blacked out. So that makes it kind of sad that I had the highlight of my life, but I don't remember. So it's true.
Yeah.
And then my girlfriend asked me to play naked with her for 6 hours.
Yeah.
It's also true. And it's the most ridiculous thing anyone has ever asked.
Now, when your girlfriend asks you, why don't you play with me naked for 6 hours? And she says this to you, let's say at 10 o'clock at night. Do you just remember that when you do your free writing at 7 a.m.? Or are you like, hold up, girlfriend, whatever your name is, I gotta get on my phone. I'm gonna type this exactly what you said so I can remember this tomorrow because that was gold. Right. So when she said that, I was like, at the moment I started thinking, yeah, we can play Monopoly 3 people for 6 hours, but the 2 of us, it's never gonna fucking happen. So it happened right there, and then I went the next day. So I did a couple of like shitty analogies in the moment with her, and she laughed. And I was like, there's meat to this. So I sent myself a little email being like, you can't play for 6 hours with just one person who you've been singing for years. Yeah. And then the next morning, I went back and I was like, and then I had the Disney thingy. Yeah. But then it's little fragments of information because like I've read an article about people who work in Disneyland and they just do laundry for 12 hours a day. Yeah.
So Disneyland, when you work at Disneyland, is hell.
Yeah.
So a piece of information was there,
Yeah.
and it's always beating it until you get the happy coincidence.
Okay. So you do remind yourself certain things. So you did recognize that what your girlfriend said was hilarious, and so you email yourself. The next day you get that email, and now you just free write. And when you're free writing, I'm assuming you're just kind of recounting. Is your joke notebook, if I were to read it, almost like a diary for you? Like I know exactly what you were doing on these days based on what your free writing in this comedy notebook is like. It's pretty much a recount of your day.
So it's really because as you know, my jokes are super short.
Yeah.
So I always let's say riff on writing for like 5 lines, and if it really doesn't contain anything,
yeah,
I do a next little bullet point and I just start something. But the thing about like when you start writing at 7:30, when you barely had a coffee, when you're not fully awake, there is no censoring.
Yeah.
And if you look at my notebooks, every time that I find a joke or like a seed of a joke, I put a little bracket on those 4 lines.
I saw the bracket,
so that I can so that if I'm at an open mic, I look at my notebook real quick and I see what has a thing. But sometimes I can go 7 days, March 1st, March 2nd, March. And I live through every single day, and there's nothing.
Well, how does your brain know that you have a seed? How do you know to bracket this? Like, what is it in your what is going on in your head that, all right, this is something I'm going to bracket it? How do you know that's funny? Do you test it out on anybody, like your girlfriend or social media? How do you know what you wrote is bracket worthy?
Right now, I'm doing TikTok. And TikTok is like a really good open mic. But I'm gonna if you give me a second, I'm gonna go get my notebook.
Sure.
Like we can
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, I'm back. So I have this thing. This is jokes.
Like for instance, the Disney World, like the analogy with going to Disney World versus working at Disney World is hilarious. So like, how did you know? Like, I guess like obviously you wrote that and. Are you giving, like, do you see your mind almost playing tricks on you, and the fact that maybe a punchline that you've rewritten for weeks, you're starting to see become funny, and you're like, oh no, it's really not, it's not really that funny, it's just that you really want it to be funny because of how much work you put into it? Or is there just some way that you know that this is funny before you tell it on stage?
Because I know joke format. I know that it's like, so for example, I had a thing where I was like, where I put it in brackets, and I was like, when I was 20, somebody cheated on me, but I was too naive to see it. This is true. Like my girlfriend used to tell me that her computer was overheating, but and her ex-boyfriend was coming to like fix it. But then what I wrote in that morning, I was like, turns out there was nothing wrong with the computer, and it was her pussy that was overheating. But then before an open mic, I just go, and I'm just like, this is tacky, hacky, and cheap. And it has the word pussy in it, so I don't know that I have much merit. So I abandoned it, and like the first time that I was cheated on, this is a loaded subject. Yeah. And I hope I can crack it one day in a more classy way than that.
Yeah.
But I also have, for example, I have this joke about who told, like, I have this idea of like how people say like when a woman has a tight vagina, that is the gold standard. You want to have a tight vagina, but a tight vagina kills. Like sex just lasts 45 seconds because she's so tight. So it's like, to me, like the equivalent of a tight vagina is like a sleeper chokehold on a UFC fight. Like, would have been much better, but this is so tight that it ended it after 40 seconds. So I know there is something funny about going against the tight vagina is great, but this one I know that like
there's something there. I
probably said it, so I don't know, but I said it. Yeah, and I think I said it twice at an open mic and nobody laughed. So I was just like, fuck it, I'll move on to something else. And I'm not gonna beat myself up. Like, I'm not perfect.
I have a question. Do you write your jokes out in English or Spanish?
English.
Okay, and
when I went to Colombia, I was doing it in Spanish.
Okay, wow. That's just impressive. And do you run by your material before it hits the stage for the first time with anybody so that it makes sense? So you don't go up on stage and say crook and cranny. Do you have somebody that will be like, this is not a, what you're saying doesn't make any sense. It's like, King James English. You need to say it this way. Do you have like somebody who kind of makes sure it's Americanized before you tell it on stage?
No, not really, because I'm used to like going up on stage in New York.
Okay.
So like by 7:00 when I have a show, I set it at 2 open mics, and I have the impression like as soon as it comes out of my mouth, I'm just like, that didn't make any goddamn sense. I think even an open mic audience just looks at you like, what? And then you just go, okay, yeah, it didn't make any sense.
All right, that's funny. As I want to talk about maybe your material, I'm going to go on a little bit. But one thing that really stuck out that I read was that you have an interest in digging into your childhood and finding your insecurities, which has come up a lot in this interview. You talked about getting cheated on, the restraining order, a whole bunch, a couple other things that kind of, makes you very vulnerable. When you're sitting at 7 a.m. in the morning and you're looking at a blank sheet of paper, how do you revisit, and your teeth missing, these things, how do you revisit some of these memories that could be 15 years old, 20 years old? I mean, you talked about you had a crush on you masturbated to your teachers. Like, how do you kind of recall kind of these old memories? Like, what do you do, or do you have some kind of document that you've had like a journal or something your whole life that you kind of like peek through and see if there's anything there that's worthy?
That's a good question. I think like if you go for a hike and you don't have headphones, you're probably going to smell some leaf that throws you right back when you were in 6th grade on a field trip.
Okay.
And then your mind is wandering, so your mind will just go like, oh, my best friend Billy turned out to be gay, and now he's married, and like he used to get bullied in middle school, but now he's like happily married, and we're a bunch of losers, and he's doing well. So look how it turned out for us. Like you started from a smell, and you wound up in this crazy other thing. So I think that when you have zero expectations about the content of your material, just grabbing a pen and a notebook, it's the same as going on a mental hike.
Okay, that makes sense.
And as I said, I can ramble for, like, I'm looking at from the 10th of February, page number 1, nothing. Number 2, nothing. Number 3, nothing. Number 4, there was an idea of like my girlfriend is like my GPS, and then I tried it, and people looked at me like I was a fucking moron. So that day, the writing, you could say, was worthless, but it wasn't worthless. Yeah. Because it helped me discard ideas that were never going to work.
Yeah. I like that. Do you make it a point? I know you bicycle and everything, and do you make it a point to go out every day and not have distractions, not wear headphones, not be on your phone, so that you can let your mind wander and see if a nugget will kind of foster up in there? Is that something an everyday thing for you?
I think if you read about, there's this really cool book about writers' habits that I don't remember the title right now, but if you're interested, I will send it to you.
Yeah.
There's like a compilation of 200. Please send me a message later.
I think I've read that book. Is it like it's
something?
Yeah, it's mostly writers, right? They're not comics. They're mostly like just like literature writers. Yeah, like Stephen King's in it.
Everybody,
I've read that.
Flaubert was like, the maid came at 9, brought him a croissant and a coffee, and he just sat there the whole fucking day.
Yeah.
But if you remember, a lot of them talk about going for walks.
Yeah.
Gary Goldman, I think, walks for 3 hours up and down New York, letting his mind wander. I don't do that consciously, but I do swim every day for 30 minutes.
Okay.
So, for example, I was swimming today, and for some reason, I started thinking about this porn star called Piper Perry. It was so tiny. Yeah. And her videos are always banging a guy that's like 7 foot. Yeah. Or a woman that's 7 foot. Or 5 black guys. Yeah. So then I thought, why do people say Ronda Rousey is the strongest woman? They haven't seen Piper Perry. That was it. Yeah. That was it.
But I guess kind of going back to like this the way that you kind of write your jokes then, and I saw you wrote the 4 to 5 lines till you get an idea. You mentioned that a few times now. You give a premise 5 lines if you can get it to be funny, and if not, you abandon it. My question kind of is like, when you have a punchline, when you work on a joke and it's funny, or you think it's funny and it doesn't do well, either at an open mic or on a show or whatever, how many times do you give that punchline, or how many times do you revise a joke until you're like, I'm just gonna scratch it, like that it's not worth me even doing anymore?
I write a lot, so I don't get attached to anything.
Okay. Wow, that's healthy.
And when my jokes don't do well, it's like they either get a chuckle, and I repeat them until I know, like, the hack is easy. I have something better to try.
Okay.
Or it just gets 0. They get 0. But I will never abandon a subject that I know is right for jokes.
Okay. Okay, so if you have a punchline and you're at some open mic and there's 4 people there and it just doesn't do well, is that it? Is that it got once and done? Doesn't matter who the audience was, or do you wait till like?
No, the audience. If the audience is a piece of shit, I will. Yeah.
Okay.
I'll keep that. I'll take that into consideration.
Okay. Now, do you go back anytime and revisit old jokes? I know you say you write a lot. I know you said you've never get writer's block because you're writing so much and you're not getting attached to your jokes, which is so healthy because I get too attached. And so, do you ever go back to an old comedy notebook? Like, let's say, like, I just want to see if there's anything there again. Do you ever do that, or is it literally like these jokes have one time? Pedro gives it. You have like the most strict criteria for it to get into your set. That if a punchline doesn't work once, it's gone forever, and then you're going to go on to the next one or whatever.
I don't go back to the notebooks. As like, for example, I started doing TikTok recently. Yeah. And but then the idea of recording jokes that I know that work for live audiences is so boring. Because I know that the joke is done. So it's like I just won the World Cup because of quarantine. I'm playing video games again. So I finished a level of a video game. So I can't go back and finish it again because I know that I mastered it. Yeah. And I never see myself in so bored that I just go like, it's more boring to open an old notebook than just leave the fucking pen where it is. Yeah, but did you master it if it only got one shot? Like, if you had an idea, and it may not be something that meant a lot to you. Like, if it's not, let's say it's something that's not about your life. Let's say you observed something weird on the street and you did a punchline, it didn't work, and you scrapped it. Did you really master it, or did you really like work it out? Like, I'm gonna give every subject, every premise, the same amount of time and attention, or do you not do that? Well, I mean, I think that Louis C.K. told some comedian once, if this is something that you've thought about more than 3 times in a week that just pops in your head, you got to pay attention to that and write it. So I think the fascinating subject, I am never going to abandon. Okay. But I've also heard many comedians say that a joke sometimes just sits there for 15 years until you figure it out. Yeah. Fucking Jerry Seinfeld is still doing his dumb joke about the donut holes. Yeah. I heard him say that. A new iteration of that joke that has killed for probably 30 years. Yeah. But he wants to tweak a sentence. Yeah. Good for him if that's how he wants to do it. To me, that's so boring. Yeah. But at the same time, it just goes to show you that you can never stop tweaking something. Yeah. As I was telling you about the Foxworthy, I'm like, I'm a fucking moron. And I hope one day somebody books me for a 2-hour show. So I have to, that morning, panicking, trying to get all the tags and try to milk all the potential out of a joke. Yeah. Okay. The one thing I really like that I never heard before is that once you're done writing, you reward yourself with Nutella. I like the idea of
putting a reward to something. It kind of like gets you, gives you that kind of goal. I know you do the Jerry Seinfeld block the chain kind of deal as well, but it's like that reward is very important. Do you have bigger rewards that are like for instance, did you have a reward for if you ever made on TV? You would go to, I don't know, you would go to Italy for the week or something, and then you got Colbert and did. Do you have more, do you have like, for higher goals, do you have bigger rewards set up, or is it just for writing? You just treat yourself, kind of thing?
First of all, I don't recommend the Nutella system because Nutella is so addictive that you will just interrupt your writing session 4 times to go get a fucking teaspoon of Nutella. So whenever I said that, I was probably addicted to Nutella and I was justifying it. But
What's your new reward system then?
I've talked to friends. Like I've been waiting outside Gotham for like the stand-up NBC audition. And I've been like, let's get a fucking donut. And my friend is like, when I make the finals of stand-up NBC, I will allow myself to buy this $5 donut from this blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And it's like, to me, at the end of the day, you show up every day to do your job, and it's done. Yeah. And there's no special days.
Yeah. Okay.
When I did Colbert, I wanted to do a shitty show that same night, some town, like 2 hours away, 2 hours upstate. And my friends had to be like, will you please take the night off and enjoy?
Yeah.
Because we want to celebrate with you after the Colbert thing.
Yeah.
And I didn't do that show. And I had a really great time with my friends. Yeah. But I would have been equally as happy going to do my show.
Okay.
Because it's a compulsion and it's something that I enjoy. But I think as you were going back to like, do you go for a walk? Do you disconnect? I think we're horrible at like treating ourselves because we're like the clowns or the chill people who don't care, but we care too much about stand-up.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like, if you live your life, then the funny will happen.
Yeah.
But if you just live inside your notebook, then you might become like a really clever wordsmith, but you will have no essence for people to really connect with. And now I feel like people are really connecting with like honesty and real life.
Yeah. Now, can you talk a little bit about your editing process? Because you said it, like your jokes are very short, but you're also writing so much. I mean, the joke that you do about your nose, or the joke that you do about go back to your country in the airport, like that joke, it could be 15 pages in your notebook just because of different, just your free writing, but the joke itself is only 30 to 45 seconds. How do you edit so that you know that when you deliver that joke in front of a crowd, it's all the right words, there's no excess garbage, it's relatable, everyone's going to get it, you're going to keep their attention. How do you edit your all this writing that you do?
I think a lot of it is intuition and you work on the jokes. So for example, the real story that happened with the joke about go back to your country involved saying, I was in Miami making the stop on my way to Colombia, and we were about to transfer planes, and the pilot said, please let the people with international connections get off the plane first. So then we were trying to get out, and there was this gentleman who was blocking my path, blah, blah, blah. And I said that, let's say 10 times at different open mics and shows, and I could just see people just like looking away and like looking at their phone and being bored. So I was like, how can I convey the same idea and just get rid of all this fucking blah, blah, blah that is really not relevant? I don't need to do a pilot impression. This doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So I just said, I was at the Miami airport. I was late to catch a flight home, and I got into a moving walkway. I substituted the plane for a moving walkway, and there I have a guy blocking me.
Yeah.
So it's always like, look for the quickest way to get to where you need to be, and any extraneous detail.
Okay. All right, cool.
Another great thing for like that's helping me recently, it's like, and I suggest if you don't have TikTok, go do it, because sometimes it's like 15 seconds and you're like, you know how I told you that Piper Perry thing? Yeah. I said it that fast.
Yeah.
Because the app that subtitles you have to caption TikToks for people to get more views.
Yeah.
So I cranked everything I could. So I could get those 15 seconds. So TikTok is also a great practice too.
Okay.
What word do you need? So for example, so going back to that Piper Perry joke.
Yeah.
I would say a lot of people say Ronda Rousey is the, but these people have not made Piper Perry. Piper Perry will go against a giant man.
Yeah. I
don't have to say Piper Perry will go against a giant woman.
Yeah.
I'll just say giant woman.
Yeah.
And then for emphasis, Piper, like it, but it's just like somehow I've trained myself to just like any word that you can eliminate, you eliminate, because the details of what matters about this joke is her height.
Yeah.
And the fact that she gets pounded.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. Now, are your jokes written out like word by word before you get on stage, or is there some kind of working?
Sure.
Okay, so you don't work out material on stage.
Unfortunately, I go blank when I'm on stage.
Okay, so let me ask you this then. So the joke that you do about go back to your country, that's in your 5-minute set. That's if you're with a booker, that joke's going to be included. If you're in a show for industry, that joke's going to be there. Is that joke now separated somehow from the pact? Like, did you write it out like on a separate sheet of like legal paper, and now it's like in a filing cabinet somewhere in your house, or is it still just in the same notebooks with all the 45,000 jokes that you don't tell on stage?
I mean, 45,000 attempts of it.
Yeah, I'm just making
45 actual.
Yeah,
jokes.
Exaggeration, yeah, a little bit, but
I do have a Word document where I have 3 words that say like "go back to your country," because I've said the joke so many times.
Okay.
But I don't think I'm gonna forget it.
Okay. But it's typed out still, right? It's typed out word for word somewhere.
No.
Oh, it's not.
No, because the first time I said it, I said it word for word.
Oh, okay.
And I've said it 1,000 times since.
Oh, so. Okay. Now, how do you prepare your set?
So preparing the set, you've seen me panicking 10 minutes before your show, writing, because my jokes are so short that I really have to. If it's like 70 minutes or like 45 minutes, I write 63 jokes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and ideally I have a little, because I don't headline a lot yet, so then I have a little heist tool where I could take a peek at my notebook.
Yeah. Do you record your sets every time, or is every single one of your sets recorded, or how do you remember what you said in case you say something off the cuff or something that's hilarious, you don't mean to? Do you record?
That happens very rarely.
Okay.
but I think Colin Quinn said Colin Quinn was being interviewed last year, and he said, they asked him if you could give a newer comic any advice. He said, record your sets and listen to every single one of them, because it will shave off years of progress. Okay. Yeah, I think I got to a point that like I was going from place to place so much that I couldn't get interested into that. I think it's very useful. I think I got lazy when it came to that. And then organizing is sad. It's like if you're getting up 3 or 4 times a night, the first 3 times you have your little. I have a little you've seen the little things that I carry. Those really tiny notebooks with like 10 jokes. So I have 10 new jokes, and then I recite them at 2 open mics, realize 7 of them are garbage. And then at the end, at the night, I try to string together those 3 that like kind of work. And then just day by day, you're just like adding one little brick to the structure that you had. Okay. But I'm not great at like segues or anything. I just pile them up. And
now, how do you know when a joke's done? Like, for instance, the going back to your country joke, or your nose joke, or your father, the Feliz Navidad joke. How do you know those jokes are done and there's nothing more you can do with them?
Like, I don't, because people say, I just see people with like 9 tags, and I barely ever have 1 tag. Yeah. Okay. That it makes me sad. I need to go back and like revise every single joke and just like, okay, give it 3 more specific examples. I think if you're interested in that topic, listen to Marc Maron's when he interviewed Drew Carey, which I don't know if you've seen his stand-up.
No.
But Drew Carey's stand-up is extremely good. And he talks about, you introduce a topic, you hit them with the punchline, and then you illustrate the punchline.
Okay.
So he tells you something, he makes you laugh. So he does is like, hey, what about this drive-through liquor stores and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like, your premise, it's like, for the people who are always on the go, drink, like it's so busy that you can have to drink and drive at the same time. So there's like little premise, little blah, blah, and then he does a really long act out of like, boom, boom, Merry Christmas, boom. And he's just like, it's fascinating to see how we stop, but they're like, haha, this was a funny thing, and this is a funny contradiction. And then the whole act out, I don't do.
Yeah.
And I got to get better at that. I get better like at like, as specifically giving life to the joke that I just told. Yeah. So for that, just like they watch Drew Carey do stand up and listen to that interview. I think it's going to be really illuminating.
Now, are you starting to do that now? Are you so like, for instance, like the joke that you do about losing your niece at the mall? Eventually, if I see you 5 years from now and you tell that joke, am I going to see you now illustrate, like, and act out the punchline? Is that something you're trying to incorporate in some of your older jokes, the act out?
I think my progress tends to be like really slow, but more and more, I'm realizing that I've just finished the joke and I throw a little line here and I throw a little line there. So I think it's not something that I'm consciously focused on. Yeah. But it's growing.
Okay. Now, you write so much, and from all the writing you do, you have a headlining set that you can use, or a feature set. What is how do you file the jokes away? Like, we talked about filing a little bit, but is there a way that you separate from the notebooks where you're free writing to more of a, written out joke? I know you have the little notebooks that kind of have 2 words in them, letting you know what the new joke is. But I'm talking about, is there a separation from the lower tier comedy writing, free form stuff to now, like, it's getting promoted to a different, like, either, a Word, a file on your computer, or like accordion folder in your room? Like, do you promote your jokes in any way, the ones that make it to your set?
So on the computer, like, I have my Google Drive, a document that's like 45-minute set, and then 5 is like random references about brands. For example, my joke about Trader Joe's, my joke about Netflix, my joke about blah. Yeah. The 5 minutes that I did on TV, the 10 minutes about my family, the 10 minutes about dating. So like, if I write a new joke and it pops, I introduce it into the dating part of the document. And if it's a new joke about my family, it goes there. And if it's just a random brand observation, it goes into that. Okay. Cool, man. Well, dude, that's great. I love hearing your writing process, man. I think what's even more fascinating is just the amount of writing you do, is the amount of performing that you do. You're out 6 to 7 nights a week. You're performing at least 2 or 3 different times. How do you navigate not being a name comic? Yeah, I mean, you're a great comic, but you're not Jerry Seinfeld or Dave Chappelle, who can just walk into any mic and go right up or whatever. How do you navigate doing all these mics a night and holding down a full-time job and having a steady girlfriend at the same time? Like, how are you able to hit these mics so quickly in New York? But I guess after a while, that the people just get sick of your face. And like, if you show up somewhere for 2 years constantly, then you get to ask for favors, right? Yeah. Hey, I'm gonna go to this show, so then I'm gonna come here. Let me go up third, and then I'll bounce, and then I'll just get on the train. It's really. It's kind of like when you tell a doctor how do you do like a 15-hour shift. Like those motherfuckers do 36-hour shifts, and it's sort of like, yeah, well, I mean, they do get paid for that. Yeah. Unlike us. Yeah. but it like comes with the territory. Like, you ask an athlete, how do you? I mean, the best, like, I'm afraid of making like excellent analogies, because I once made an analogy with like like a really good, like, how, like, so you're comparing yourself to Michael Jordan? And I was like, no, you dumb fuck.
That sounds like a bitter open micer.
What I'm trying to say is, like, the best of the best work the hardest.
Mm-hmm.
So you look at, like, Kobe, this fucking kid lost the game, and he stayed and he played for, and he did 3-pointers for 3 hours. So sure, it's boring and sure, it's repetitive, but how else do you get better? I'm not a prodigy. I have to, like, really pound the pavement to get it done.
That's awesome. And so do you always, when you're out at these mics, are you always trying something out that you wrote that morning, even if it didn't get a bracket? Is there something from that morning's writing session that will at least get tried out new that night? Again, there's no bracket. Let's just say, you just had a nice concept. Do you ever try to work anything out on stage, or is it always every night something new is going to come out of your mouth?
Not necessarily anything new is going to come out, but the process is so constant that there is always going to be something that could be improved.
Okay.
But I rarely go to, let's say, a club, even if I have 10-minute spot, and I am going to go through the stuff that I'm working on for 7 minutes, even if there's 7 minutes that are not strong. And then when I run out of things that I'm really excited to improve, I'm going to go with 3 minutes that I know work.
Okay.
Because I'm not performing to, like, impress the people who book me at the club. They're free to not book me anymore. But I also know that what I'm saying is decent enough that I'm not going to make the audience walk out of the room.
Yeah.
But I feel that I'm only going to grow if I keep coming up with new ideas and taking a risk, because you and I know many comedians who got 15 solid minutes and forgot and just started drinking every night and chasing skirts and just have not gotten better. And it's not that I'm like, oh, my work ethic is like, hey, fucking bored of doing the same thing all the time.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. I mean, it is so impressive, and it really makes me work harder knowing that you work this hard, because it just, gives you something to, like, I can see how good you're doing, how well you are, and it's like, just like you're a good role model that way, man.
Thank you.
So, like, a couple other things is, what kind of articles and podcasts or stuff that you listen to or read religiously that kind of help you improve on your stand-up comedy? I mean, you mentioned a whole bunch of books and Marc Maron and all this stuff, but is there something that you, like a podcast that you never miss, or an article from some magazine that you always read? Anything like that about comedy?
I like the Hot Breath podcast, which you're aware of. Mike Birbiglia's Working It Out. We just talk about jokes and how to and just, like, break down the jokes in the podcast. I listen to Theo Vaughn. He talks about the industry, growing in the industry. Books, man, there's so many books. Yeah, I mean, the Jerry Seinfeld article about his daily system, that really made a difference.
Yeah.
Now that we're not in a pandemic, my nothing. There's no calendar, nothing. I just go wherever the hell. But when things are normal, and I know that it's Monday, and if I wrote that morning, I put a W. Yeah. And if I perform 3 times a day, I multiply 7 times 3 equals 21, or 7 times 2 equals 14. And I know that the first week of March, I went on stage 14 times. The second one, 14 times. The third one, 14 times. And then I look at the fourth one, and I was like, oh, look, I was going on dates too much, and I just got up 5 times. And I asked my friend, and he's like, I went up 18 times. And I go, okay, who are you to go up 4 times a week? And think that you're going to do better than your friends who are doing 18. So it's like, it really keeps you accountable.
Okay. Now, is that something with yourself, Pedro? Is like, with your girlfriend or any girl that you've dated in the past, like, they have to understand that comedy, you love comedy first, and then they're going to come second. I mean, I'm serious. Is that kind of how is that in order to have, like, a steady girlfriend like you have, they have to almost understand that comedy comes first, and if there is time, then you come second. Is that kind of what's on the table when you first meet these women?
I mean, the world is changing because you and I see that now people are getting show deals because they're filming TikToks in their bathrooms.
Yeah.
So that's become less of a worry for me. But I'm fortunate enough that I have a partner who understands how important it is for me. And we've gone through like a rocky time of like me just trying to be way too independent. But I just happen to be lucky enough that my girlfriend likes to travel. So when we go to Albany, when we go to anywhere, she's always with me.
Okay.
But she knows that, like when I had a 1-bedroom and my desk is right next to my bed, and I can't concentrate unless I'm locked in my bedroom by myself.
Yeah.
She would get woken up at 7:30 and sent to sleep on the couch for the next 90 minutes.
Okay.
And she was fine with that.
Okay. All right. That seems like a keeper, Pedro. Now you have this incredible work ethic and this incredible discipline. How do you set goals for yourself? I mean, you got Colbert, and I've heard you, and I think your humble nature, where it's like, you're like, well, it's not going to lead to anything. But people, comments like us, like we look up to comics like you who can, get on Colbert with, you don't have an agent and all that and all the other stuff. You just grinded it out, and based on your merit, you got Colbert. What kind of goals do you set for yourself? It's such an uncertain landscape. It's not like you work at a bank, and if you put the kind of hours you put in the stand-up at a bank, you'll be a bank manager in 2 years. Comedy, you might take 30 years for you to get that far, if at all. Like, so do you set yourself goals like specials or writing gigs that you say, like, by this year I want to get it, or do you not do that to yourself because it's too much of a torment?
So, for example, I think I've tried to keep the pulse to like what happens with comedy. And if you were like Jim Gaffigan in the 90s or in the early 2000s, and then you did Letterman and you murdered Letterman, then you would get a TV show. You had to please the booker at Letterman. You had to do great at the meetings with the people in Hollywood, and then they would bring you up. And unfortunately, I think we stand-ups are like still subscribed to that old model because it seems like we just got to show up and be funny, and then they do everything.
Yeah.
So this year, over the past couple of years, I've been like traveling the country, just like featuring and like headlining here and there. And I've been seeing headliners who are like 60, and I just like whiskey, cholesterol pill, joint, and then just like, I'm gonna do the fucking dance again.
Yeah.
And I don't really want to tour the clubs. I don't want to be out of my house 52 weekends a year. Yeah. That's kind of like, that's weird. So then I thought up to myself, let's see if I can get a writing gig. And then I started teaching myself how to write TV, and I do have a manager. Oh, you do? And we had a talk about I did get a manager. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. But so then we talked about. He called me and he was like, "What are your goals?" And I was like, "I guess I'll learn to write TV and maybe try to get a job in TV." And my manager said, I don't staff people. I don't." He said, "I talked to my upper dude, and he said, we don't staff people. We make stars." Okay. And I was like, "Oh, holy fuck! Maybe I'm shooting low." Yeah. And he was telling me, "What are your goals for this year?" And I was like, "Well, I was learning how to write scripts, but you fucking told me not to. So I don't have any goals." He was like, "Go, start writing shit, put it out there, build your fan base, because instead of being a writer who gets on a show, who when it gets canceled goes right back to zero, once you build an audience, doesn't matter how many shows fail, but you already have an audience." Yeah. As I was telling you about my friends in Colombia, they answer to no one. Yeah. They get the money from every single show. So like I started like 2 days ago, I started my TikTok in Spanish. Yeah. Put up my first joke about the Cialis. 300,000 views within a week. Wow. 2,000 followers. So this is people that so then if I can do it in a week, give me a year. I'll multiply that number. And those are people who are going to buy my tickets. Yeah. And my manager was very clear. He was like, "Tell me your goals." And I was like, "Grow my audience." He's like, "Grow your audience by how much?" Yeah. So then I'm just applying my system to like get better at joke writing for that. Okay, how many TikToks are you going to post a day? 5 in Spanish, 5 in English.
Yeah.
They're not going to be great, but once every 30 days, there's going to be one that's going to pop.
Yeah.
And that's going to get you followers, and you're going to link them to your Instagram. And those people are going to be people who pay for your tickets. So that's my goal right now is to produce as much content as possible and to put it out there and to grow my following and to just be dependent to nobody.
Awesome. Let's see here. What will validate you that all this sacrifice was worth it? What is the ultimate goal that will let Pedro Gonzalez know all this writing, all this, the failed relationships or the not, using your degree and all you leaving Columbia? What is it that will make it in comedy that will let you know that this was all worth it? Is there a certain goal that you hope to achieve one day?
I just want to tour for like the next 30 years of my life.
Okay. Awesome. Well, dude, that's it, man. Wow, that was an interview, right? With Pedro. He's just an amazing comic, an amazing interviewer. Please check Pedro out. He is everywhere all the time. One of the best comics working out there. Go ahead and please check out him on his stand-up clip on the Late Night Show with Stephen Colbert that you can find in the show notes. Also, subscribe to this channel. It really helps me out when you do that. And leave a comment and a like and everything else that you can do to help me out. Also, come see me live. You can see where I'm going to be at any upcoming shows at my website, markstod.com. All right, till next time, I'm Marc Stoudemire. See you later.